This episode of Mountain Pass is brought to you by Elspeth's Escape from Debt, a debt consolidation service for Magic the Gathering players. Don't stay in the underworld to minimum payments and unmoving principal balances for any more turns than you have to. Just let us dig around your graveyard for a few minutes, that's all. Nothing weird. Be debt-free on paper by the end of the month. We're totally not loan sharks. Why would you ask? Why would I even say that out loud?
Welcome to Mountain Pass, your window into the standard Magic the Gathering format. I'm Gabe, and this is my co-host, Charla. And our guest today is Brandon.
Lone Shark.
I'm just
Amico.
I'm just honored to be nominated, honestly. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I really think this was just a scheme because Brandon went way in underwater after that debacle with the 17th floor.
Yeah, in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have read his credit card out over.
Yeah, so it's been
podcast.
in the last 2 weeks. It's been a little bit of hell for me.
Some strange charges.
I have strange charges. I've had people show up at my door demanding payments.
Gabe, don't tell him, but most of those charges are from me.
They took my cat. Not both of them, so they can't be together. Now they just miss each other.
Oh, that is really
well, now I'm
sad.
Good.
My God.
I guess maybe I'll return that car I bought.
Those bastards.
What kind of card you get?
Don't worry about it.
We're in Theros now.
We are in Theros
We're fully
now.
in Theros.
Well, we're back in Theros
Well,
now.
yeah, but we're still in Theros. Semantics.
Semantics. They're important.
We're doing fun things like escaping cards. We're doing Flip It or Rip It, which is really fun. Charlotte had a really fun time.
So good. So those collector booster packs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that has become a new hot commodity to flip and rip in the shop.
So
they're
for listeners that might not-
for...
They're retailing for close to $30.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And for a reduced price, I will rip that product that you give me money for.
So
Seems
for-
like a win-win, right?
For listeners that don't know about Flip It or Rip It, do we want to explain how it normally goes to the regular booster pack?
Mm-hmm.
The person selling it will open the pack, mix it up, take out the land and the token, mix it up and put it all face down.
Mm-hmm.
The purchaser...
We'll use Brandon as an example.
Okay.
Not that he's done this and failed
Certainly not.
by any means, but so then, Brandon purchases the pack. He flips
Let's
one...
say it's a Modern Horizons pack.
Yeah, we'll say... Okay, yeah, for just storytelling's sake.
Yeah.
It's a Modern Horizons
I
pack.
purchased a Modern Horizons pack for below...
For below
price, so
yeah,
it's a deal.
yeah. So it's a deal. You flip it over, and it's a common.
Well, you flip over one card, and the goal is to flip over the rare.
Right, and if you flip over the rare, I, Charla, do not get to rip any of your cards.
But if I flip over a card, and then I keep the whole pack.
Yeah.
If I flip over a card that isn't the rare, I keep that card, but then you choose one face down and rip it without looking at it.
I sure do.
And then I pick one and flip it face up. If it's not the rare, repeat. Until we either
Rinse
get the
and
rare,
repeat.
or all the cards are either pulled
Right.
or ripped.
Or my masochistic side wins.
So, it can be fun. It's definitely not a recommended activity for those of you trying to gather the collection.
But if you would like to have a Force of Negation signed and put on your wall, signed by the person who tried to, like a Brandon.
I could have had a Force of Negation.
But now I do. Ripped in half.
But to be fair, you did it a couple times this weekend with collector's boosters, so
I
that's
did.
that's some high stakes.
High stakes.
And we decided the extended art was the quote-unquote winning card.
Yeah.
And did you win?
Oh, I won it. I won the second card.
I'm so salty.
And she could have ripped up a foil Borderless Ashiok.
I'm so upset.
A foil Nyx Lotus.
All I want is chaos.
The extended temple. Yeah.
I think I am chaotic evil now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We gotta plot ourselves out.
Yeah.
Good times.
That was fun. The packs are, if you want them, they're there. They're a lot of shiny cards.
Seems like they'd be hard to rip, though. That
they are.
Foil.
They're a little... Well, thankfully, you rarely had to rip anything. The one you ripped was that, planeswalker
Yeah, but I
deck
played this
card.
a lot with other people, too. So there was a lot of, teeth ripping and, it was rough.
Okay.
Worth it. But rough.
I mean, you still got paid at the end of the day.
I did. House always wins.
House
Except when I won.
always wins.
Where are the tourneys at? That's what I want to know. Where are the standard tournaments at? Do you know where they are? Do you know where they are?
Europe?
Probably.
Maybe?
Botswana? Maybe us. New Zealand?
Could be.
So we're at the point where Theros has only been out for about a week, officially, but pre-released the week before. Arena, they had people out playing it even before that.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels like we've been playing with these cards for a while now, but we don't have a solid view of the meta. We've
True.
seen a lot of decks come together, and we're going to talk about those today, but we don't have a good grasp of like what the top played decks are, what the top performing decks are. It's all kind of like anecdotal at this point.
That's true.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
we're living in the 90s when this first came out, and it was not internet days.
There were
Trading.
no decks.
And you're
Right.
trading
It was
your
just the
No
cards
decks.
that you had.
Right.
and you're trading Black Lotuses for Shivan Dragons.
Because
Yes.
Shiving Dragon wins games.
Yep. Black
a
Lotus has
big
never
fucking
won a
dragon.
game. Except for
No.
that time it got turned into an elk and then killed the game. and killed its opponent.
So good.
Yeah.
So how do you...
Oko, fair and balanced magic.
Yeah. It's banned in 5 things right now if you count historic suspension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is one away from the record, which I believe Skullclamp has, of 6. So we'll
Look
see.
out, Commander.
Well,
Oh, it's coming.
I don't know about Commander. I don't think it's crazy in Commander,
Doesn't matter.
but Vintage and Legacy
It's
maybe
got the stink on him now.
does. Just to clear, just completely get rid of it. So how is Theros feeling for you? First couple matches you've been doing the new Magic year, as it were.
Well, I've been playing a lot of Standard on Arena for the last week or so. I mean, it feels like there's no solid meta. Like, it's kind of all over the place, right? I think Mono Black Devotion was the very first front runner. I played a lot of that when the set was first released on Arena. But that deck has been evolving, and now there's like 3 different builds of it that I've been running into. There's like a really aggressive build that's like low to the ground, it's just trying to get you dead. There's like this sacrifice build that uses Woe Strider and Midnight Shepherd. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Nightmare
Shepherd.
Nightmare Shepherd. And just tries to get value that way. Sometimes it has the cat oven, sometimes it doesn't.
We'll talk about this when we get to it. You should not run the cat oven, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Do you think that part of that is just like memory of Theros because Black Devotion was the deck to beat when Theros was around the first time? Or do you think it's just because it's very different? Like it's not the same deck at all.
No.
Because, Thoughtseize.
Short of one card is the linking glue between that.
Right. But I still am like, I wonder if people were like, oh man, Black was so great. Great, Gary's back. So immediately built around that.
I mean, the cards around Gary are very good. Maybe we'll just dive in. Let's talk about... Well, first we'll talk about Mono Black. Let's talk about the decks that people are playing right now, these new builds. And then we'll go into the meta as far as decks that existed before rotation and where they are now. Talking about Mono Black, Gary is a good reason to play this deck. It is very, very powerful. Gary, again, being Grey Merchant of Asphodel, as we've determined before. Which Fodel isn't a
the
word, but
Asphodel.
it sounds filthy.
It
Does
really
sound dirty.
does. Can't see it, but I am beat red right now.
Because it sounds like fondle.
Right. Oh, is that why?
Or it sounds like some protuberance that you could...
You know what really
potentially-
helps a joke is explaining it.
Yeah, that's what I was going for there.
And when you explain that, like, explaining a joke makes it funny,
Yeah.
that's even funnier.
Next level.
Kristen Shaw is a
That's
horse.
what I was going for.
Next level. Next level.
So, I've been playing this deck a little bit as well. There are some fun stuff you can do with it. It has hot hands and bad hands. It has some really bad hands. If you just, like, draw nothing but Aora and your Nightmare Shepherds, you're doing nothing for the first couple turns, and you have a couple... It's a very synergy-related deck.
Yeah.
Whereas with the other synergy deck from last format, which is John Cat, had those synergies, but it had redundancy as well. If you took out the oven, for example, you were still doing some other stuff. If you got rid of the goose or something, you could still do other things. Whereas this, if you don't assemble enough pieces, it's not doing much.
Yeah.
Aora on its own without enough creatures in there is not draining for much. It's not drawing you cards. Gary, if it comes down by itself or with one other thing, is not going to do much out there. You need to establish a board presence, and in the face of board wipes and hyper aggressive decks,
Right. In the face of Wrath of God, which is now on Standard.
Yep.
Although they do get to draw a card off their Nightmare Shepherd whenever I wrath them.
Yeah.
And then get all the creatures other than Nightmare Shepherd that died.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that will happen. Nightmare Shepherd is nice.
I mean,
That card
usually,
has performed
to be
very
fair, in my experience playing against this, for those of you who don't know, I play almost exclusively control decks when I have my choice. I mean, I tend to try everything out at the beginning of format, so I've been playing a lot of different decks, but...
Not to mention you have to know what to control.
Right.
So it's good to try those out.
But, I will eventually end up in a control deck. I know this. You guys know this.
We sure do.
Yeah.
And
we've sat across the table.
The mono black deck is not that scary. It's not the thing that I'm scared of most in this format. It's just got creatures, and occasionally they'll get a game by a timely Grey Merchant of Asphodel. And
that's the goal. That's the goal is
right.
to put a few things down, then drop Gary, and maybe get Gary again by getting a version of it with Nightmare Shepherd.
But Absorb is in the format. You've got Life Gain in Dream Trawler and Archon of Sun's Grace, and realistically, any deck that's gaining 5 to 10 life is not going to die to a Gary trigger.
No, that's
it's
true.
Just not going to.
And there's a lot of life gain
There's a ton of life gain.
There are some ways to chain a few Gary triggers though, play it Aara to sack it and draw a card, immediately get another one because Nightmare Shepherd's out. Yeah. That can be a ton of damage if you're doing 12 twice or something. It's not that hard to do. You, like I said, you have some really strong curves where if you curve out 2, 3, 4 and into Gary, you have 9 devotion.
But it's just so slow, right?
If you don't curve out, it's extremely slow.
Right. It's slow, and by the time you're casting Gary, I've got my Absorb and I'm just waiting for Gary.
Yeah.
And if he goes straight to the graveyard and I gain 3 life, you get 0 triggers, even if you have a Nightmare Shepherd. So.
Right. And that's why I've leaned toward... I moved away from the cat because, in the face of counters, having a cat and cycling it once a turn is not enough.
Yeah.
And that's really all that does in that deck. It's just another cycle. It's not even that much devotion. It's maybe one more pip if you have the cat there. It's not enough. Whereas in Jund Cat, it's triggering Mayhem Devil. You're getting to use Trail Crumbs. It's growing Corvold.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like that sack outlet is enough
No.
because you have enough others?
Yeah. I mean, you have Woe Strider if you're using it. You have Aara to draw cards or Scry or something. So you can get rid of cards if you need to regenerate them with Nightmare Shepherd, as it were.
Playing the Priest of Forgotten Gods in these at all, or not?
I've seen it a little bit, but you don't have a critical mass of bodies. You generally want your bodies to stay on the battlefield.
Yeah,
right.
I've seen it too. Right. I've actually seen it more in the black-red sacrifice deck, which I think is actually stronger than the mono-black and more aggressive than the Jund version. So it seems like it's at a really good place right now at the beginning of the format, where that deck is actually a little scarier. I haven't seen anybody playing Blood
Really?
Aspirants.
I've seen a little bit of it. It's done well.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's just because it's just a 2... it comes down as a 1/1, but it's very quickly a 2/2, and then it just grows, and it's just a beater.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always liked about aristocrat-style decks is it feels like you take away interactions of your opponent.
Yeah.
You make it so they can't make a decision because this sack trigger is on the stack. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's been the beauty of Witch's Oven.
Right, exactly.
Removal is so bad in the face of Witch's Oven.
Yeah.
Especially removal when you want to
care.
do something after.
Right.
Murderous Rider.
Yeah.
If you go to murder something, you're not going to lose life, but you're not going to get the other half of that card because it's going to the effect's going to counter itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the aspect that I've always liked about it, and it seems like that's missing a little bit because you want to have that mass group of bodies on the table.
So, as someone who's been playing, this is the main deck I've been playing since Theros came in. Where I felt more comfortable with it is a slightly more aggressive build. Has Knight of the Ebon Legion up front to start providing pressure early.
Yep.
And has a couple Cavaliers at top, which are great cards. So you can just fling a Fenlurker or something at their best creature and then start pushing. Also, 3 more pips for Gary is nice. And Bolas' Citadel is nice at the top.
Yeah.
Paying 5 life for Gary and then gaining a bunch back is very
I
good.
think Bolas' Citadel actually saves that deck from being a tier 3 deck.
Bolas' Citadel is so good.
It's nice. But the hardest part of that is to balance. You want a board state because you want those devotion points, but you also you need more interaction. There's a balance that we're still trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've got other mono decks we want to talk about, right?
Yeah. Actually, 2 more. One of them will not be surprising to anyone who's played a little bit of Magic in the last couple weeks is Mono White Life Gain.
Yep.
Pretty much solely brought out by Heliod. That's the reason we have these decks now.
Because there were mono white life gain before, because we had a Johnny's Pride mate and a Johnny who makes a Johnny's Pride mate. That was out there, but that was very squarely C grade.
Yeah, it was
fine.
Squarely tier 3, where if it drew well and you weren't prepared for it, it can take a game easily.
Sure,
because there's powerful stuff there, but it's not consistent. The strength wasn't quite up there.
You can't take over tier 1 decks with it,
right?
Because you don't have answers.
But all of a sudden, Heliod throwing +1/+1 triggers out, it's really easy to gain life
All
in
right.
Standard.
Well, one of you tell me what Heliod does.
Wins the game. No,
He's a-
Nissa.
Nissa who wins the game, correct.
Heliod is a god, is an enchantment creature god. He's not a creature unless you have devotion to white 5 or more. And he costs 2 and a white for a 5/5.
I think it's around there. I don't have him in front of me,
I
but
think
it's
he's
around
a
that size.
5/5, and you can pay 1 and a white to give another target creature lifelink.
Right.
And that's not all.
But
He
wait,
slices,
there's more.
dices, even makes French fries in 3 different sizes.
It truly ends.
Yeah.
Salad shooter. It helps you
no,
every day.
if whenever you gain life, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature or on an artifact.
Enchantment.
Or enchantment, yeah, you're right. So
you
he
can
can put them on himself, but importantly, you can also put it on Treacherous Blessing if
I was
you're playing the
thinking that.
black-white enchantment
Black, white,
deck.
or Espers.
Yeah,
or
which
Esper
makes
Control.
Treacherous Blessing sacrifice itself, so you stop losing life every time you cast a spell.
Treacherous Blessing has been very strong.
So
as well.
good.
I feel like we need old Erebos back where your opponent can't gain life.
These
Wasn't that-
gods are
was that
definitely
Erebos?
seem
Yeah.
a little weaker compared
Black
to the other
Erebos?
ones.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
I didn't play the first Theros, but looking at them compared to the new ones, it seems like the gods are a little watered down compared to the old
The
ones.
gods are a little watered down.
They're still powerful in the right shell, and definitely
They
Heliod in a thing where Johnny's Pridemate gets a counter every time you gain life
Honestly,
anyway.
all of
Yeah.
this Theros feels watered down from the previous one.
Interesting.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Hmm.
And I being
I
the
will
only
say-
one who's played both.
One card that
Gets
we
me
missed
right.
in our top 10 that has really, really overperformed for me is Elspeth Conquers Death.
Yep.
Oh,
a white
yeah.
card. I think we just all were like, white.
We're like,
Yeah,
why? Whatever.
And one that I kept on my chopping block,
So
and I was
good.
like, I don't. This. I'll take it off the list. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It
But
was
it
like on
is
top
good.
20.
Yeah.
Was that, and then also Birth of Meletus is also a nice.
Oh, yeah.
great
Birth of
control
Meletus has
card.
been really
Yeah.
good for me.
So it's easy to rag on white lately, but it got a couple good cards in this set.
And actually, I think has bumped it up in a way that white was not seen
Yeah.
before.
It was really red that kind of got the.
Shaft?
I didn't want to say shaft because I feel like that's. I don't want to say that.
You just don't like the word shaft?
Just saying "got the shaft" sounds upsetting. Got the short end, drew the short straw, as it were.
The short shaft.
The short shaft.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Drew the
That's
short
better.
shaft.
Yeah.
It's short a couple hay pennies, you know what I mean?
Hey there.
No, so mono white life gain is really kind of like a white weenie, like aggressive white deck that just puts some creatures down and grows them very fast with Heliod.
Yeah.
There are a lot of incidental life gain triggers in Standard right now because generally on its own life gain is not very powerful. You can gain a ton of life; it doesn't matter. More valuable than gaining life is taking life away from your opponent. So usually life gain strategies are not very good unless you're doing something with them. But now every time you gain life, a counter on a creature.
So the triple white creature, Linden,
Mm-hmm.
the Steadfast,
Yep.
that
Yep.
has been another really good card that I didn't even think about for mono white life gain. It, you drop it and then you attack with your creatures, giving Heliod triggers so they get big before
Yep.
they even hit.
So she is
Like,
one I
that's pretty
actually
brutal.
tried to grab up as many as I could before this because I was like, oh, she's going to finally see
Yeah.
play.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Nice.
coming.
I think
She's
all
coming.
the cycle of three devotion cards from Eldraine, which were clearly
They
made
were
with
set
thinking
up.
of
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of see that every now and then with
Right. Where you're like, okay, this is coming.
But really, the one thing holding the mono white life gain deck back, I think, is this next deck on our list, Azorius Control, my deck.
Oh, Gabe, would you like to tell us a little bit about?
So Azorius Control, I think it was Brian Gottlieb that really popularized what's going around now as the Azorius Control. It's really an enchantment, sort of mid-rangey deck, actually. It plays Birth of Meletus. It plays Medomai's Prophecy and Omen of the Sea. Those are all 2-drop enchantments that help you make your land drops or just draw cards. All things that are great. It also plays my new favorite card of the set, Archon of Sun's Grace, which is a 4-mana flying enchantment Pegasus. Or no, it's not an enchantment itself. It's a Pegasus that triggers enchantments.
Erebos bless me.
Erebus bless you.
Oh, I don't. Out of
You
all
didn't
the
say
gods,
bless you.
Yeah, well, out of all the gods, Erebos is not the one.
He's the one I'm gonna end up hanging out with one day.
Uh,
We're all gonna hang out with Erebos.
Yeah,
that's a
probably
good
true.
point.
Death is inevitable. Everything's a sham. Anywho,
So-
Archon of Sun's Grace. Make a lot of lifelinking Pegasus.
Yeah, you make it's a 3/4 life linker, so it
Is it
gains
3/4?
you life. It's a 3/4
It sure
flying
is.
For
for
four.
4
For
mana
4.
With
Yeah.
upside.
with
Yes.
upside,
You
and
can
whenever
make
you play an
Pegasus
enchantment,
tribal if you want now. I'm just saying. I'm throwing it out there.
sounds lovely.
Doesn't
This card is
it?
great. It's so good. I totally missed the fact that it itself has lifelink, and the Pegasi it
Sure.
makes have lifelink.
Pegasus.
He says it with such confidence.
Suck my
You son of a...
Pegasus.
Save it for under the table.
this card-
good. A joke we made
Joke
before
that
recording.
nobody will understand at all.
Great.
Yeah, that'll be cut.
We're consummate professionals. I don't want you to
yeah.
cut this. I want this in.
So people...
Keep the struggle.
The struggle is
The struggle is real. It really is.
So how's this
So-
felt against mono black, against the
It
mono
feels
white?
great against mono black, mono white, and mono red, which we're going to talk about in a minute.
What the ramp decks we'll
But
get to.
really, the thing is the Dream Trawler. We have to talk about the Dream Trawler. Anybody who,
Not just for limited.
not just for limited anymore, not just ruining games of limited.
That card is really
It's
good. It's a game
great.
finisher for a control deck.
Oh, I
It's
put it in my Pioneer
crazy.
deck, and it was great.
Nice.
Overperformed for me in Pioneer. So
That's impressive,
I mean,
actually.
the-
The standard, I was like, okay, this in standard, this is definitely going to. I've got a player at my shop that blue is like his jam. Jacob Bushon.
yeah,
It's like all he ever wants to play. So when that was printed, I was like, oh, buddy, you finally get to go back to your
yeah.
home.
I mean, well, it turns all of your like extra cards that do nothing into counter spells to protect your best creature.
Right.
Yeah.
What's bad about that?
And
Draws you cards.
gains you life.
I like
Gains
that you're like,
life.
oh,
I don't know
exactly.
what else I
Exactly.
could ask
Yeah.
for. It's great.
It's also not hard to like make that thing hit for 7 damage.
Oh, I
pretty
hit for
easy.
12.
Nice.
Yeah, no, couple of thirst for knowledge or thirst for meaning
Oh yeah.
draws you 3 cards,
Mm-hmm.
even though you have to discard some cards. You still
Wham.
draw those 3 cards.
Thirst
That is-
works great in an Azorius enchantment deck anyway, because you have a lot of options to like maybe later in the game where Thermalitis is not doing anything for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Bye.
You toss
Wham,
it.
bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah,
still
the
think
deck really came
Adding in
together.
that staggering blue-white card.
Staggering Insight.
Yes, is anyone
But all
using
my
that?
creatures already have lifelink.
Doesn't it make it to draw a card?
Wait, what's
All
staggering
my
insight?
creatures already draw a card.
Ah, fine.
You
You don't want to draw 2 cards? Is 2 cards too good for you?
No, it might be good.
Whatever.
It might be fine. It
Game's
only does that
humoring me
one
now.
thing though. Now all my cards do like multiple things.
Right.
Which is how
You've
I
gotten
like it.
greedy.
Yeah, that's right.
Back in the day when cards did one thing.
And they were not overpowered or anything. This just got me 3 mana once. For nothing. It's not that good.
Yeah,
It goes to the graveyard.
terrible.
I have to bury it.
I've got this nice Shivan Dragon. I'll trade you for it.
Hell yeah.
Hell
John,
yeah.
I'm
That is
in.
something that sticks around.
So I've thought a lot about this power creep notion. And I think basically you've got like if you've got a graph, which is perfect for audio, you know, in the beginning you have spells that were incredibly powerful. You've got
Yeah.
your lightning bolt, you've got your counter spell, you've got
Ancestral Recall.
right, all that shit, right? And then you've got your creatures, which are Shivan dragons, and like these just
5 mana 2/2.
right, giving all your things horsemanship, like just all this shit, right?
Oh, horsemanship.
Oh, horsemanship. But now your spells are crap because they're things like cancel and like soft counters, and your creatures do all of that for you.
It's true.
So I think it just basically crisscrossed each other. Anyway, that's all I have to say
I mean,
about
you
that.
gotta think like they made this in a pretty Richard Garfield and whoever else he tested it with made it in a pretty small vacuum. They did it pretty well to start off with. Like, sure, there'll be some mistakes. Black Lotus and the Moxes are incredibly powerful, but as far as it goes, like, did really good right away, and
No, but
over
my
time
point is, like,
figured
the
out.
creatures were terrible to begin with, and now their spells are terrible. But the
I don't know.
creatures
There's that
are
tree
phenomenal.
folk. That's really good. It's like a 3/7 for 6 mana or some bullshit. Because I remember looking like, what's the cheapest alpha card I can buy? And
you
it's
were
like,
like,
it's like
oh.
$17, and it's just the worst
The
thing.
worst
in the world.
thing you've ever seen ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Last
sounds
pick
right.
in your draft.
Exactly.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, Wall of Kelp is now expensive because it's on the reserve list. Get that Wall of Kelp!
So if we're in
Only
control,
card in Homelands ever sold. Sorry, I'm done.
I want some homelands. I'll take some homelands.
Great. It's
You got some
garbage. Oh, sure. Sure do.
Sealed.
Whole box.
Whole
oh yeah,
box.
sealed up. All 7 cards in those packs.
Were they 7-card packs?
Yeah, something
Yes,
like
they
that.
were. They were
Oh,
terrible.
back in the day, they were.
They varied.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like set to set. They tried out a bunch of different random things, and
Yeah.
one of them was 7-card packs.
Yep.
It's been 15 since I knew the game. Anywho, this is not interesting.
No.
Folks.
So
So if you're in control,
yeah,
you're in Azorius.
I like
Get
it.
blue and white.
yeah.
What about adding black? You want to add black?
I mean, I do want to add black
Ashiok.
because I'm greedy.
Ashiok.
As we've
And
just
Ashiok is
discussed.
great, and also now you can play 8 Thought Erasures. So
Yeah.
going
Fuck
Thought Erasure into
you.
Thought Erasure into Thought Erasure is now like just a regular
Personal
thing that
offense.
happens.
There's diminishing returns at some point, though, right?
Is there?
Well, yeah, no, there are. I think actually the list that I've been seeing of Esper Control have been playing 4 Thought Erasures and 2 Agonizing Remorse. So it's only
Oh.
6.
Only
in the
6.
main.
Only
six
6
in the
reasons to
main.
rage.
Yeah.
That's the dying of the light.
So
But no, so are you sticking more to Azorius than Esper?
I have because I
poetry
just
drop.
haven't seen any need to go into Esper, even though I love Esper and I love knowing what my opponent's going to play before they play it. The Azorius deck has been so strong. I've just loved playing it with the enchantments and the Archon and the Dream Trawler and Thirst for Meaning. It's great. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommended if you're into control.
Well, what if you're into... You want to cast big spells? You want to ramp it up a little bit?
Maybe Simic?
Yeah, you'd probably be in Simic.
Or Band.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is that they made a card that triples your mana,
Oh, did
and it's
they?
not even
Yeah.
seeing play in this deck. Is how
Yeah.
crazy you can ramp
Yeah.
in this deck.
Which is bananas. Yeah, that card plummeted.
Yeah, now's a good time to pick it up, I think, because I think it's going to be a commander staple for as long as
For
it's
sure.
not
It
banned.
is. It is. It
For
won't
sure.
be banned for a while.
It's just like so many ways
They
to
let
get...
Paradox Engine ride for a good couple years.
There's just so many ways to get mana now, and
Yeah.
also Nissa is really good.
Right. And by the time you
Because-
What? Hold on, this
Ooh.
is news.
Yeah.
Nissa who...
News flash, everyone. This is pretty good.
This just in.
Nissa who wins the game.
Read all about it.
So anyway,
So Simic ramp.
Yeah.
but it is dumb because like by the time you've got Nissa out, that's the best time to then cast this beast, the Nyx Bloom Ancient, and then what are you gonna do with all that mana?
Well,
Yeah.
I have seen people play
What do you
that
do with
and
all
then
that mana?
immediately
all that mana inside.
inside your what?
Go ahead.
Panda? How you what are you doing
No,
with mana?
I'm just gonna leave it. I was hoping you were gonna
inside
interrupt
your
me.
van.
It was good.
So I actually have seen on Arena someone do this to me when I was playing Mono Black, and they got Nissa out, and the next turn they did a few things, played Nyx Bloom Ancient, had like 2 lands untapped, but between 2 lands and like having Risen Reefs and the Leafkin Druid, the other elemental on
Yeah.
there, which taps for 2, which now traps for 6 when that thing's out,
Oh, yeah.
played like 7 more elementals, created a huge board, and was like, good game.
Gross.
Next turn I played a Gary and killed them. I was like, yeah, this is a good game. You got a huge board. I probably, if I didn't have one, I would have been dead next turn. But you needed, I don't know that it's necessary, because I think with these decks, what I've seen them doing is using that big mana and then using Agent of Treachery
Yeah.
to
with
steal your
Thassa.
opponent's things, and Thassa to repeatedly do that, or Cavalier of Thorns to have a huge board presence and ramp you, and then, again, blink it with Thassa.
Yeah.
Giant Krasis is... I think that's all you need to do.
Yeah, the Simic deck really goes over top of you, and I think the end game for it now is really Thassa plus Agent of Treachery, and it is just game over.
Some are really
Steal
shaving
all
off
your
hybrid race.
lands if you
Yeah.
have
Right.
nothing else. Like, I mean,
It steals lands. That card's crazy.
steals lands.
I remember stealing Field of the Deads in that mirror match when
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
when
It's like
Golos was a deck.
Gabe talking about when you're playing kids and you start stealing their lands. They're like, wait, what? You can do that? But they don't scoop because they think they're gonna win.
Like,
They're
but I
not.
could still draw some lands.
It's I could get some lands. You're like, you mean draw me more lands? Yeah, you could. You could
I
draw me
will
more
take them.
lands.
I don't know. Maybe you'll deck
This will
yourself
be
because you're going to be
mine.
drawing three more cards this turn with Adrian at that point.
Yeah.
You could. That's
So
why
is what
Jace
the-
is out there. No.
The
Dark
other
is-
version of the ramp deck is the Bant Uro deck, which has gotten a lot of play recently, which also plays... so it's splashing white for Teferi, obviously, and Hushbringer, which allows you to play Uro on turn 3, and it doesn't have an enter the battlefield trigger. So you just get a 3-mana 6/6 that when it attacks, you get to put a land on the battlefield, gain 3 life, and draw a
Yeah.
card. So pretty good card.
I mean,
Printed
the
that way.
worst.
especially
Not the
considering you can
worst.
curve out into Hushbringer on 2 and Uro
Yeah,
on 3.
exactly. That's
pretty
the
nice.
dream.
Yeah.
you know?
And then turn 4, attack with a 6/6, gain 3 life, draw
Put a
a
land
card,
on the
put an extra
battlefield.
land on.
And then it
Magical
still has
Christmas
the end
land.
game of Nissa, turn your lands into 3/3s, kill you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Turn your lands into weapons.
Does it use Finale of Glory at all? Or is it not needed?
I haven't seen people going that route, or at least I haven't lost. The games haven't gone on long enough to where I've lost from that. I usually lose from Uro and Nissa being together on the battlefield, or I win before that, so...
Because back in War of the Spark Standard, I had so much fun just doing Simic or Bant. It was usually Bant Ramp.
Yeah.
Where it's just the whole point is to make enough mana to mass manipulate everything on their field, or Finale for 10 and make 10 Angels and 10 Soldiers, and people scoop.
Magic the way Garfield
Is that not good?
And when I say Garfield, I mean the cat.
Obviously. Lasagna-based.
Yes.
It's a very lasagna-based cardboard game.
It's true.
You know, I feel like Bant is kind of like that. You know, you've got your layers.
He's really your Odie of... It's just kind of inoffensive, a little dumb, but you can just get a bunch of mana like, oh, what am I going to do with all this?
Well, I think the last deck we're going to talk about is the Odie of the Standard.
Oh, yeah.
Brandon, you want to talk about this deck?
Yeah, right, just because it's mono red aggro?
Yeah, let's talk about Odie, shall
Am I getting
we?
typecast right now?
A little
yes,
bit.
You are.
Let's be honest. Brandon would be
So, mono red is
Garfield minus Garfield.
back. I'm more Garkov. It's a deep cut for anyone out there who follows all the ways that the Garfield comic strip has been used as an artistic medium. Anyway.
Went over my head.
Mono red aggro is kind of back? Maybe?
Yeah,
People are
I
playing
think it is.
It is?
I think
okay.
it is.
So, it's
once people
not
figure out the right build, which is 4 Annex, 4 Torbrand, and 4 Phoenix of Ash.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Phoenix is notoriously good.
the two things it got are Phoenix of Ash and Annex. Annex especially has been incredibly powerful.
Super good.
Board wipe protection. It's hard to deal. Once you get a board presence, it's hard to completely knock you off unless you completely brick wall.
Yeah.
You get completely brick walled. Torbrand is nice, especially with all those satyrs that Annex is making.
Yep.
I have issue with it's playing such weak 1-drops. There aren't a lot of strong 1-drops. Fervent Champions, okay.
Yeah.
But
then
like
the other one is like the Tin Hat or the Tin Street
Tin
Dodger.
Street Dodger's not good. I don't like Scorch Spitter.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess I like it more with Torbrand because it's hitting for 3 and then 3 again.
Honestly,
well, and the same thing with the Tin Street Dodger because you can make it not get blocked.
Right. I also think Scorch Spitter was put in the format for spectacle triggers.
Yes,
like, I think it was
certainly
designed for being able to get that damage in there, even if your creature doesn't hit.
Yeah.
But the reality is, there is a lot. That deck puts out a lot of damage fast.
It does.
And it has some card draw. It's got Robber of the Rich if you need it. It's got Runaway Steamkins to get mana. It's got Light Up the Stage. It can go off pretty hard.
Frenzy is still a card.
Frenzy's still a card. It's relegated to sideboard use now, just because that deck runs some Phoenixes.
Control
and
decks.
some,
Against me. Must counter.
It is a must counter.
Yeah.
Especially because, I mean, white you can deal with enchantments, but you don't want to board in enchantment removal for a red deck.
No.
Feels bad.
I mean, I play 4 Banishing Light in the main, so...
Yeah, now you have an answer to that.
So you don't really care. You're like, whatever.
I mean, but it does... It actually taxes the Banishing Lights. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to have to cast all of them against the red deck, because Annex has to be... I can't kill it.
Torbrand has to be answered.
Torbrand has to be answered immediately.
Yep.
And Frenzy has to be answered, And then the Phoenix of Ass...
Phoenix of Ass.
Of Ass. That's how I
Phoenix
personally
of
think
Ass.
of it. I'm like, this Phoenix. It keeps coming back. So I can't, Shatter the Sky. They all have to be exiled.
Yeah.
Like, especially Annex and the Phoenix, they have to be exiled.
Right.
They will just keep coming back and kill me.
And I think the strength in that is people have to answer it. You're playing chess, you want to be able to know what people's next move is. So you're like, okay, you're either dead or you're going to waste this spell that you've been holding in your hand.
And I don't have to do anything else until you answer this.
Correct.
And that's
I just can sit back and wait. And red, red I've only ever played in Modern, and I think one of the things that's hardest for people to learn is you don't want to necessarily put all of your cards out on the table. You want to hold back your red cards until you have to use them.
Yeah.
Well, there is a little bit less of a worry of that with Annex, because it does provide board wipe protection.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a different kind of control, as you're saying, like controlling around what your opponent's playing. Like, when you're still early in the game, they're only playing one spell a turn.
Yeah.
You can kind of
So you're forcing them. You're like, you have to deal with this, and I don't have to do shit until you do.
I'll force you to board wipe, tap out, and then I'm going to hit you with these couple things.
Yep.
That is my favorite type of control, is when I'm controlling their reactions to me, not controlling what they can do.
Right.
Yeah. Setting the pace.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So those are kind of the big new ones. There's lots of other silly stuff out there. and some of it might be really good. Some of it will probably stick to the jank category. But let's not forget there are many decks that are holdovers from the last format.
Yeah.
The last standard that we'll talk about in a moment after our commercial break.
Commercial break.
Commercial break.
Commercial break. We don't need music. We can just do
Oh,
that.
that was beautiful. You
harmonized.
two. Wow. Do you need help explaining your Magic the Gathering hobby to your partner, spouse, or family? At Duelist, that's Duel with an A, we specialize in helping you start these difficult but important conversations.
Yes, I will marry you. But there's something I need to tell you first.
What is it?
I play Magic the Gathering.
Like, as a joke, right?
Here at Duelists, we have seen too many relationships suffer as an unintended consequence of this game. So this one has trample.
So mine dies.
Yes, but first...
And yours will too, because, 'cause mine's strength
power.
is more than that one's toughness, right? That's what you said.
Yes, but they don't this time.
Why?
Well, there's this thing, it's called First Strike, and that splits the combat into another... Communication is the most important part of any relationship. And when you can't find the words to explain magic properly, those you love pay the consequences every day, like the smothering tithe of resentment. Hey, check out this card I got tonight.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, it came in a $30 pack, and it's like $45, so it's like we made money.
So you're gonna sell it for the profit because I actually need an oil change on my car.
Call Duelist today and gain one life. Your life.
All right.
Okay, we're back.
Oh, well, we're back. Gabe, are we back?
I don't know, Charlie, we back?
Wait, let me check my watch.
Oh, actually,
Yes,
we already
we're
left.
back.
Shit, alright, fine, we're back.
I think we missed us.
That was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Alright, let's go.
I missed me.
I miss me too.
Yeah, me too.
So anyway,
We were talking about decks in Standard,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about some of the new archetypes that showed up recently. But
Right.
let's talk about the tried and true decks.
that's true. And let's talk about like how these decks are being affected by all these new cards. Have they seen their heyday, or are they getting enhanced?
Yeah, I don't know.
I
Why don't you
I thought you
start
were going to
with...
make a pun on heyday.
I
And
know.
guys
now
were
it's their
waiting for
hey
it.
night.
I tried really hard to
Yeah,
think of one.
You
but
guys were really giving me the benefit of the doubt. I had nothing.
Yeah, I'm sure Charlotte
I
cut it out,
had
but there was like a
nothing.
full 15 seconds of silence there, legit.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about the first, what I feel like was the best deck of the last standard, and I still feel like may still be the best deck right now. Who knows?
Jund
is
Golgari food.
Jund Food, and there are Golgari versions of it as well, but
They're
not
not
as
good.
good.
Jund Cat, or I don't see getting rid of Man Devil or Corvold. They're so good.
Yeah.
These decks picked up Treacherous Blessing, is a card that's being seen to play a lot of it because a lot of what you're doing is like activated abilities, so you're not really losing that life. But it's just there are some points where that deck would stall out.
Yeah.
You need a couple more cards to get going, and now you can have it. But it's still very, very strong. There is an inevitability to that deck that I don't know. I would be most scared of, because I haven't played it much because there's new decks, but I've been trying to make myself not play the deck that I played all of last format. But I would be worried about Agent of Treachery coming down and stealing Corvold and everything else.
Oh, yeah?
That's the thing that scares me. Nothing else does, because there's just so much power and inevitability in that synergy that you feel like if you get long enough with this deck, you're going to win the game.
Right.
And
Board wipes and stuff don't really hit it too hard.
No, because board wipes aren't going to deal with your ovens or your trail crumbs. So you're basically going to need one spell, and you're going to just start up the engine again.
Okay, so what about like the increase in exiling?
The increase in exiling, I mean, there's not a lot of difference in exiling and killing in that deck. That deck, when something went to the graveyard, it's gone for good. It didn't do anything with anything in the graveyard.
Fair
so
enough.
Except for the cat.
Except for that cat.
Okay,
It just
fair.
kept coming back.
That's the big thing.
But,
The very
but
next
honestly,
day.
I
Cat
think
in
the
the
deck...
Hat did come back. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I think the deck revolves less around the cat combo now than it did. I think it just has
100%.
better cards going up the curve, and it can just play a mid-range like value game,
Yeah.
even if you never draw a cat combo.
Right. Cat's great. Don't need it.
And that's the way it is. Sometimes you would be playing a deck and would not have the cat combo. Or they would Sorcerer Spyglass the Elven or something. Like, that deck can still work. It definitely loses a step when you get rid of those. But
or have you seen people playing Woe Strider in the deck?
I haven't. And I haven't had a chance to test it out myself, but it feels very good. I could see it as like a 2 of.
Yeah.
Maybe losing Beanstalk
redundancy.
Giants or something that didn't feel like they were super necessary.
Yeah.
Just to have a little bit of scry, just to have that ability to sacrifice another creature if you need to. Like sometimes you need one more ping or one more Corval trigger, and your ovens are tapped.
Right.
Or
I was gonna say, because better than 1 oven is 2 ovens, so why not 3?
Yeah. Or 4, because the deck definitely runs 4.
So 8. No, I just mean like another sack outlet.
Yeah, I don't
Like another
know.
way.
I mean, it creates a body, which is nice.
Yeah.
Right.
It creates there's 2 bodies for 1. It's got that free sack outlet. The scrying is minimal, but that actually does do something in the graveyard too. That comes back. But because you don't need anything else beside the cats, that is a nice little grindy thing.
Yep.
I do want to see those decks move toward that. I think it's valuable to have a couple in there.
Yeah.
But it still feels strong. The Golgari is kind of the same. I just feel like leading into Casualties of War doesn't do much for me right now because it's not going to deal with Heliod or Vasa, so why?
So we think it probably still has a pretty good position.
I still think it might
I
be
think
the
it's
best
still
deck.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or close to it.
What about Jeskai Fires?
Terrible. Move
No,
on.
why are you doing that? Why are you playing Jeskai Fires? Like, why are you playing a deck that can fall apart to a disenchant?
I never felt like it was great anyway. I mean,
There's
Kevin is very upset wherever he is right now because he tried to ride that to the end.
I mean, it was a tier 2. I feel like everyone was playing like a tier 1 deck, but it always felt like a tier 2 deck. Which is to say, it was a strong deck, but it was not. I don't think it was the best choice in most periods of time. When people were scrambling after the bans, I could see playing it because it had a very clear, straightforward plan and it did some powerful things. But when people were ready to prepare for it, Green just got a 1-mana removal for a Fires of Invention.
Yeah.
Mystic Repeal.
Mystic Repeal. Yeah.
Which is very good and deals with gods as well. So I would expect to start to see more of that card in sideboards.
Definitely, if we see an uptick in Jeskai Fires, I haven't played against it once actually on the ladder. It just doesn't seem like what's it even doing in the format? You know what I mean? Like it picked up Storm's Wrath,
Right.
and it picked up Idyllic Tutor if you want some redundancy, but I don't think those are enough to actually push the deck into like being competitive with some of the other stuff that's going on. And you got to remember too that like we just added a whole set to the standard, which means the overall power level of standard went up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like we have still everything that was happening plus we added decks. So
Right.
I just don't think a deck that was like on the verge of maybe being tier 1, tier 2 is going to cut it in a more powerful standard
Not
if it
unless
didn't
it
gain something really good.
Right.
I
Nothing
think-
pushed it over.
Yeah.
It always felt a little bit like a cute deck.
Yeah.
Like one that was like, oh man, if this happens, it's going to be amazing.
I mean, Fires of Invention is a really powerful card, and there's
It is.
probably a build that can abuse that. I don't think the current build is where it's at.
Honestly, the 5-color Niv felt very powerful with Fires of Invention just because it wasn't limited by color. You could play the most powerful spells in Standard.
Right.
Right.
The Cavaliers are strong, but if you're not playing 2 on a turn, you're not comboing them off. They're kind of just good cards. They're not great. Idyllic Tutor was real, though.
Yeah.
I will say Idyllic Tutor to get, if you needed it on turn 3, to get your Fires to turn 4. Or if you had a Fires, to get maybe Banishing Light would be a nice thing to grab. To have removal. Do I need removal? Do I need Fires right now?
Or maybe a certain 5-mana enchantment that exiles their best thing and then brings back your best thing.
I mean,
What thing you think?
yeah.
Elspeth Conquers Death.
Right.
To bring back your best planeswalker
I guess
or
that's
or
pretty
thing.
good. Yeah, no. So it definitely got some cards, but I feel like it stays. These are minor upgrades. Like
Yeah.
these are like quality of life ones. Sure, it's a more powerful deck than it was before, but
Feels like a deck to play if you enjoyed it.
yeah,
But that's it.
I think it's a justifiable pick if you
Sure.
really like it. But unless you're really sold on it, I think there are better places to go.
All right.
I agree.
So adventures, we had adventures Golgari and Temur.
Temur. I actually think the Gruul Adventures deck is probably better than either of the Golgari and Temur's deck because it got the Gruul God, which is real.
The
Okay,
Gruul
I
God
called
is
it.
phenomenal. You
Just
did.
saying.
You did. You threw it out there.
Very
and the universe
beginning.
heard
Does
you.
that go in a Gruul Adventures deck? I know it goes in Gruul aggro.
I think it goes
for
in
sure.
any Gruul
Any
deck
Gruul
that
If you're in those
playing.
colors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's just a really powerful. So we're talking about Clothis,
So
God of
good.
Destiny.
Yeah.
She's very good.
She's just a 3-drop.
Yeah. 3 mana, and she deals damage even if she never turns into a
Yep.
creature. She's
Don't
good.
care.
She makes helps you ramp. And
those Gruul decks, it's not unlike all the gods, which often will not turn into creatures. I don't think Thas is turning into creatures in any of these Simic ramp matches. Erebos sees a little bit of play in mono black, so maybe it is every now and then.
I think that's your side win. Like, okay, I can win this.
Heliod turns into a deck in the mono white.
Probably would.
In the mono white deck.
But it's not the main thing. Klothys will turn into a creature pretty fast because it is devotion 7 instead of 5, but Gruul wants big beefy permanents.
Creatures. Yeah, and they stick around.
Yep.
So I think Gruul Adventures, I haven't seen much from Golgari Adventures that makes me think it's any good at all, or Teamer Adventures. They just haven't really been around. So.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Golgari Adventures lost favor after Oko. Because, like, not that it was playing Oko, but it had a good matchup against Oko. And then when Oko was gone, it was like, meh.
When Oko was gone, it took a huge upswing because it was so reliably casting Casualties of War, and it was eating up the Jeskai Fires deck. It has a really good cat matchup in that it has a target, it has an enchantment trail crumbs, it has an artifact, the oven, it has a creature and a land. Yeah. It's a huge hit against those decks. Sometimes
Henge
I have a
is just bananas
too.
Good.
Henge?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it did run Henge. A lot of those versions do. Teamer is just a ton of some of the best creatures in Standard right now. Bonecrusher Giant, Edgewalling Keeper, Brazen Borrower, Beanstalk Giant, all really powerful things that have very powerful effects. Like having 2 Lucky Clovers out and casting any of these things is crazy. Like 2 mana for 6 damage, or 3 mana for 3 lands that come in untapped is very, very powerful. That's kind of we talked about it before as being a kind of just, it feels like a mash of good cards. And sometimes that's good enough.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it in tier 1, but I still think it can do some powerful things.
Cool. Simic Flash.
I've not seen hide or hair of this deck at all.
I know Gabe, you were on this tip for a bit.
Yeah, I really liked it for a little while, but no, I haven't seen much of it. I played against one Simic Flash deck, and it just didn't seem like what you want to be doing in Standard right now. I don't think it's at its best. I think Simic Flash deck is a metagame call deck. It's like when the metagame hits a certain point, it's like that sweet spot.
Yeah.
You know? But I don't think it's where you want to be. Because most people, like, aren't playing a bunch of, like, instant speed stuff on their own turn. They don't care when you play your creatures.
Right.
They'll just kill them, board wipe you.
Yeah.
Whenever. You know, it's like, there's not a lot you gain from that deck.
How do counterspells feel right now? Do they feel strong?
I've been trimming them, honestly. I've been, in my blue-white deck, I've been playing, partly because they're not enchantments, so they don't synergize with the rest of my, like, enchantment stuff.
Sure.
And partly because it just doesn't feel like that's what the format is about right now.
Most of the counterspells seem to be soft counterspells, too, though.
I'm still just playing Absorb.
Okay.
Because of mono red, mostly.
It's good.
Because it counters 2 spells, essentially.
Yep, it does.
And Simic Flash had its strength because it had threats that were...
could
easily go. You could play a threat, or you could react to their thing, one or the other.
Yeah.
Now, I think reacting to one of their small pieces probably isn't enough.
Yeah.
Like, Frilled Mystic is a hard counter with a 3/2 body, which is very relevant.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that good to counter one of those enchantments that you play and have a 3/2 that will not do much on that board.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think we talked about Gruul aggro, so maybe we skip on down to Rakdos Knights.
Still good.
Short of saying just Gruul aggro is very good, Embercleave is a crazy card.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Embercleave is great, and any deck that plays... Oh, that's the other thing we didn't say about Mono Red. It's playing Embercleave, and I think Mono Red is actually the best Embercleave deck.
Really?
Right now.
That's fun.
Yeah, Embercleave is so scary in that deck because they're already putting on a ton of pressure.
Right.
And
I guess
Annex,
with Torbran as well.
An Annex with an Embercleave and anything else is just so big.
Oh, that's true, because there's 2 more pips on Embercleave.
It's enormous.
Yeah.
So it's minimum hitting for 8 if that's the only thing on the board.
Yeah. But it's almost always hitting for like 12 or something because it is just so big.
Okay.
But Gruul aggro, excellent. Rakdos Knights, I don't think gained a single card, but is still very good.
I might be supplanted by Mono Red and Mono White maybe as being...
Yeah. I feel like Mono Red is a better version of Rakdos Knights, but...
A reliable thing. Still putting an Embercleave on a Rotting Registrar is very good.
Totally.
It's a lot of damage.
I also feel like it's a decently... I don't want to say cheap, but you could get into Rakdos Knight and not spend a fortune.
It's not one of the more expensive decks out there.
Yeah. No.
I wouldn't say it's one of the cheapest because Ember Cleaves and even
and
like
Blood
Riding
Crypts
Stars,
and all of those stuff. Like, it's not going to be cheap.
It needs Knight of the Ebon Legion.
It
very
does,
badly.
and that one is not cheap. And okay, I take it all back.
But it's not one of the more expensive
You
ones.
also got your Murderous Rider.
I think Simic Ramp is probably a pretty expensive one.
Yeah.
You know,
Esper Hero, the last one on our list here, also quite expensive, mostly because the mana base and Teferis and just playing a lot of expensive cards.
Yeah.
But I do think this deck is good. It got some upgrades. Atris.
Atris is fun.
Yeah, it's such a
that one
fun
do?
card.
You took the top. Your opponent looks at the top 3 cards of your library,
Mm-hmm.
puts them into 2 piles, one face up and one face down, and you choose one and put it into
Oh,
your
that's
hands.
right.
other-
It's fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
It is
bluffing
super
involved.
delightful.
Mind games.
I put it to
I
I put it to
love
fairy
that.
face up and 2 lands face down for my opponent.
Did it
Nice.
work?
No, they
the
took
lands.
the fairy.
Damn.
They were just like, I just wanted to fairy right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, I'm learning.
But
Still
I mean, what else
seems
can
fun.
you
But
do
I also,
in that?
but I also
Because
couldn't put
otherwise-
one land and they would take the other thing. So
Yeah.
I figured in this case they got Teferi instead of Teferi and a land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
I guess. But it's a fun card. It's a solid card too because is it 4 mana or 3 mana?
4.
It's 4, but it's like
It's
a 3.
two
It's not
black
a Sphinx. It obviously should have
And
been
it's
a
like a
Sphinx,
3/4
'cause
menace,
It's like
I
a
think.
riddle.
Yes, it's a 3/4 menace.
which is something.
Decent stats.
Uh,
And in a deck like Hero, where you want to be kind of aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
like there's a lot of. I mean, the Hero deck kind of flip flops back and forth between being control and aggressive, but you
wants
want
to
to be able to
pivot.
turn on the aggression when it's time to go.
Yeah.
So,
And if there is I don't know if we talked about this much, like the big draw for me for going into Esper is Ashiok, but like having the hero in your Esper deck as opposed to Esper without hero
yeah,
feels a lot better about because that's one of the main draws of Esper Hero was big when Planeswalkers were big because of War of the Spark.
Right.
And having these 1/1s to pressure Planeswalkers, to pressure Teferi, like, okay, you can bounce something, but it's dead next turn, guaranteed,
yeah.
is really good. So I could see there being, if we see more, maybe there's a deck that sees Calyx in it or something. Esper Hero could probably be pretty
Yeah.
good against that.
Yeah.
Speaking of which...
Yeah, speaking of which, Gabe actually has been tinkering around with some new decks and stuff with this new standard coming out.
And I think Calyx in that deck? Or-
No, but you could easily put him in there. I just don't know if it's actually good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think it is because it's one of those cards that when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this could be so good," and this would probably be the deck for it. So
Yeah.
I've got a deck for you, and if you're looking for a budget deck to pick up for cheap,
our left field deck tech.
left field deck tech.
Coming out of left field, man. Like
Deep
no,
out of left
no, it's not the
field.
Penguin. I want to do like an old umpire, like in baseball. Like you're out of here.
Man, I did
Into
not
the
know you were
store.
attracted to old umpires, but if you want to do one, I support you.
Like
Go
it's
for
just
it.
that they have such a good eye.
I thought it was the stripes.
They don't wear stripes.
Damn it!
You're thinking referees in
Ugh.
football.
Soccer.
I don't know
The zebras.
shit about any sport.
So what we've got for you here
Anyway.
is a deck I'm calling Paradise in Pants.
I like
Yeah.
That's my favorite Jimmy Buffett song.
It's so good.
It's a Selesnya, so it's green-white deck, and it's based around auras. So the main point of the deck is to
Pants, I
suit
get it.
up your Paradise Druid, which is a 2-mana 2/1 with hexproof as long as it's untapped. So you suit that up with a bunch of auras, including Sentinel's Eyes, which gives it
Vigilance. Which
vigilance,
Is huge.
so it never has to tap, so it always has hexproof. And then you put a bunch of things on it to make it big, give it trample with Setessan Training. Setessan Champion and Season of Growth draw you a bunch of cards so
So
you
many
never run out of
cards.
gas. And then you just attack for 1,000,000 trample with your 1 Paradise Druid, and that's game over. It's a really good deck, and it's really... The strategies that are happening right now have a really hard time dealing with one giant creature. As long as you have some other creatures on the battlefield for sacrifice effects, there are some sacrifice effects going around, but as long as you have stuff out, one card that helps you with that is... I put it in the sideboard. Siona, Captain of Pyleus. Whenever you suit a creature up or whenever you target a creature with a spell, then you get a 1/1. Sacrifice fodder.
Mm-hmm. And also it fetches you an aura when it comes
Fetch
in.
it. That's right. You look 7 deep for an aura.
That's a lot.
You
That's
almost always have your choice of like 3 auras in this deck with when Siona hits the
Nice.
battlefield.
It's hard to miss with that thing.
It seems
really
like a lot
is.
of fun, actually.
It's super fun. I've been having a ton of fun with it. I will say one thing you don't want to do is you've got this giant Paradise Druid. It's hexproof. Your opponent cannot deal with it, but they've got a big board too, and you're trying to figure out how to get it through. So one of the things you can do is you can give your creature protection from a color with the Alseid of Life's Bounty, which is that 1 mana guy that you can pay 1 to give a creature protection from any color. But what you don't want to do is give it protection from green or white because then all of your enchantments fall off of it and it turns into a 2/1 again.
Oh, that'd be so sad.
I learned that one the hard way after I had said good game. I was like, good game, about to kill you. And I did it and dropped it all off, and then I was like, oh, shame concede.
So what if we learned that...
Someone else is telling this story, right now, being like, oh, this guy coming in strong, and then...
It's the opposite of my story where, like, my opponent was like a game, and then I'm like, Gary, and you're dead for 12.
Yeah.
So what do we learn? Don't ever press the good game button until the game has ended.
Actually over. True.
Don't be that person.
So this deck is really cheap. The only thing that's making it kind of expensive are the 4 Temple Gardens, which are $37. That's like half of the cost of this deck.
Yeah, what's it without?
So without that, it's like, I think $40 maybe?
That's
$45.
great.
And you probably have a good chunk of the cards anyway.
You
And it
probably
looks
have a
pretty
bunch of these
strong.
cards. The next most expensive thing in the deck is 2 Elspeth Sun's Nemesis, but you don't have to have those.
Those are
That's
the
just
sideboard,
something
right?
because sideboard card that I just thought were
She's also
great.
only around like $6 or so.
Yeah,
so.
it's $12 for 2 of them, so she's pretty cheap right now. And then Setessan Champion is $7 for 4.
Right.
That's
And everything else is like under $1 for the playset that I've got here, except for Temple of Plenty.
Setessan Champion is just a huge house of a card.
Yeah,
It draws you card, it gets bigger.
You should probably just get them if you're interested in that kind of game at all, because
I can't
they're
see
just
them staying
going
this
up.
low.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's very awesome.
So we'll post this up on our... Where do we post things?
I want to see if you can get it.
A
Tweeter.
tweener.
Tweener.
Tweet. No.
Is that what we do?
Is that a other thing?
Not tweener. I don't know what it is, but that seems like a
I
very
wouldn't.
bad.
I would not Google
I'm
that.
not
yeah.
Googling it.
Okay, can we just cut this part?
Nope. It
Sorry.
stays in.
Twitter.
Tweeter. We go to that old radio store that shut down in 2006.
Tweeter.
We talk about it on Boombox.
Gabe, who's
Okay,
like the
boomer.
child of this podcast, just mocking us.
Yeah, my kid keeps saying "Okay, boomer" to me. I'm like, I'm not a boomer, right?
He doesn't
You know
know.
I'm
He
a
doesn't
millennial.
know that.
Yeah, we'll pop it up on our Twitter. So now's a good time to mention, follow us at Mountain Pass Podcast, at MTN Pass Podcast, and where we will share our daily thoughts and experiences and our lives with you, if you will have us.
So anyway, you can also email us at mountainpodcast@gmail.com.
Mountain Pass Podcast
Well,
at gmail.com.
shit. I don't know. But we
So,
did
but-
actually get an email, so...
Yeah, let's see. I think we picked one for this week from Alicia, I believe, right?
Yeah. So she asks, what are the best ways to deal with the new Theros gods in Standard? Indestructible, enchantment, or creatures are such a menace. I was going to say nuisance, but menace,
Nuisance?
Yeah, they don't have menace.
They do not.
Come on, Alicia.
Gosh.
What are you doing?
They don't. Well, yeah. No,
Yeah.
they don't have.
They
don't.
don't. They don't.
And this is good.
They
This
are
is,
indestructible.
Yes.
right. They're
And they are a pain in
indestructible
the ass.
enchantments, indestructible creatures,
True.
all problems.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with it? Like, I think there's a few ways around it.
Well, sure, you let them not cast it to begin with, or you let
Counter
them not...
them.
Right.
Yeah.
So cast it, but they don't go to the battlefield. So counter it and be like,
So I think it's different for the different gods. I think for Heliod, the way to deal with Heliod is to keep the battlefield clear.
Okay.
So just kill all their other creatures.
Right, and then you don't care so much.
Then you don't care so much because we don't have the the 2 mana guy where you could pay 4 life and make it indestructible. That was the bane of my existence. Vampire.
Adanto Vanguard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Danto Vanguard. Hate that card. So glad to see it.
Yeah, you and your
Like-
board
Rotate
wipes.
it out, yeah. No, that one Adanto's attacking for 3 every turn. So I think for Heliod, you try to keep the I mean, I'm speaking as a control player. That's
Sure.
what I do. I try to keep the battlefield clear. But you can also, there's some spells to deal with it.
Yep.
I
And
think
there's...
Revoke Existence is a fine card in Standard.
Yeah.
You can play it in Constructed. It's an all-star in Limited, but you can play it in Constructed. There's enough going around that
It's
it's great.
really good. I mean, Banishing Light, again, it's your O-ring of the set.
Yeah, we have actual disenchant too in
That is
Standard,
true.
so you can play disenchant. It's instant speed, but it destroys and sends things to the battlefield, and it doesn't deal with the gods.
It does not deal with the gods. But Revoke Existence does, and by trading, because it's the same thing, but exiles instead of destroys, you're losing instant speed, but still. You gotta deal with that god.
Permanent answer for a bunch of stuff, too.
Yeah.
Bouncing them, that always can help because you've wasted their turn. Because the gods now are, for the most part, 4-drops.
Mm-hmm.
Steal them with Agent of Treachery. That always works.
That works.
That's
That's a
not
great
bad.
plan.
One fun way that I've seen is if you are in a creature-based deck, Shadow Spear is a really nice card. And I was thinking, like, this has a cool effect. That they lose hexproof and indestructible. I don't know what that's really for.
And they're
Oh,
like,
wait.
oh,
Gods. Making them lose indestructible for 1 mana.
Gods.
And irrelevant. And really cheap as far as mana costs card.
And
Shadow
it's
Spear's
very
good with it.
flavorful, too, because it's like...
Especially if you go Heliod with it.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what happened? No, he didn't die. He's just under a big rock
We're
now.
waiting for all the lore. It's not
No, he's
all
under a
done
big rock
yet.
now. He was punished. That's Heliod's punishment. It's a
We'll
little bit
see.
of an Atlas and Sisyphus.
I thought that
thing
was
at
a
the same
punishment
time.
I know,
he
I was
doled
like,
out.
that's
No,
weird.
it's him under it.
Oh, okay. Well, great.
All right, anyway, we'll come back to that at some other point.
At some point, we
So-
will let the Lorax
Alicia,
drop.
that was a very long answer to your very short question, and I hope that we actually answered the question.
And if we
We might
didn't,
have.
then
Right back again next week.
Yeah,
And we will
and be like,
continue
"Seriously,
to not
guys."
answer your question.
Yeah.
Oh, I listen to some advice podcasts, and that is a much better answer than some of them give. As much as I do love them,
Yeah, but you should subscribe to us. You should rate our podcast.
you should do all these things.
5 stars.
5 stars,
Not 4.
not 4,
Not 3.
not 6.
But 5.
End of turn. Shock.